Hello, Vibhuti. Hello.
Yes, we'll just start in 10 seconds. Yeah.
Hello.
Namaste and greetings. I, Naina Agarwal, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti, Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Talk. We are gathered today for a panel discussion on Gender and Union Budget 2023-24. This discussion is organized by the Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC, as a part of IMPRI Web Policy Talk series, The State of Gender Equality, #Gender Gaps. This discussion is a part of IMPRI's third annual series of thematic deliberations and analysis of Union Budget Financial Year 2023-24, being organized from February 2nd to 7th, 2023. I welcome all of you to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for tuning into this discussion. Our chair and moderator for today's discussion and our series is Professor Vibhuti Patel, Visiting Distinguished Professor, IMPRI. Welcome you, ma'am. The panelists for today's discussion are Professor Manisha Karne, Director, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar International Research Center, and Professor, Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, University of Mumbai. Welcome you, ma'am. Professor N. Manimekalai, Professor, Department of Women's Studies, Coordinator, RUSA, Social Sciences, Bharathidasan University, Tiruchirapalli. Welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar, Technical Coordinator, States, Gender Responsive Budgeting, UN Women. Welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Kirti Bulineni, President, Basavya Mahila Mandali, Vijayawada. Welcome you, ma'am. Ms. Lata Bhishe, State Secretary, National Federation of Indian Women, NFIW, Maharashtra. Welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Parmita Majumdar, Lead, GRB Expert, UN Women, India Countries Office. Welcome you, ma'am. Now, without any further ado, let us start the program. It's my honor to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel to start the program. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate the IMPRI team for putting together this third annual series of thematic deliberations and analysis of Union Budget 2023 and 24. And today's panel webinar is on Gender and Union Budget 2023. I greet my panelists, Ms. Lata Bise, Dr. Paravita Majumdar, Professor Manimekalai, Professor Manisha Karne, Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar, and Dr. Kirti Bolineni. The current budget set focused on capex, and I think we have read a lot about it in the media. Increase in a capital expenditure by 33% to 10 lakh crores. That means 3.3% of GDP to promote technology, infrastructure, and private manufacturing sector. But it has ignored social sector. Women empowerment doesn't just mean an increase in budget related to women-centric programs, but also it should be mainstreaming of gender across the budget. So that is very important. But what we see that the social sector budget gets the share of say 8%, which includes education, which is less than 3%, 2.9%, health, it is 1% of GDP, food security as 1% of GDP, women, child and child welfare, scheduled caste plan, tribal sub-plan, housing, rural employment and pension plan has 4.1%. So overall share of social services in union budget is reduced from 7.5% in 2023 to 5.7% in 2023-24. Though National Education Policy recommended 6% of GDP to be allocated to education, it gets less than half the amount. Poverty alleviation programs such as MG Narega, whose allocation has been cut to 60,000 crores. The actual expenditure in the last year was 98,468 crores, and expected expenditure in 22-23 was 89,400 crore. And you see such a drastic reduction is going to impact, because this is one of the very important mega budget where women also benefit, the poorest of the poor women benefit. So total allocation for National Social Assistance Scheme, Anganwadi, National Livelihood Mission, Nutrition Program has also stagnated at less than 60,000 crore. ASHA and Anganwadi workers applauded by WHO are also left in lurch. As a ratio of GDP, the allocation for the above anti-poverty program has declined from 0.79% in 22-23 to 0.53%. And other two major programs such as drinking water, which is a very important concern for women, and the housing programs, with an overall allocation of 1.5 lakh crores and increase in 13% from revised estimate of 22-23, but it is still below the budget estimate of the previous year, that means 21-22. Allocation of agriculture and allied sectors, including PM Kisan, is 1.4 lakh crores, lower than the budget estimate of the previous year. Food subsidy has been cut by 31%, again a very important gender concern. And we also have the allocation for food procurement and market intervention has been reduced from 72,000 crore to this year it is 60,000 crore. Education and health sectors has seen marginal improvement in the budget estimate, but they are totally inadequate in terms of requirement, because as a ratio to GDP, allocation for education has witnessed steady decline from 0.63% in 2013-14 to 0.37% of the total budget. So ASHA and Anganwadi workers, they are also not been, the budget is silent about what are they going to be regularized as government employees or not. Even for public health, additional budget is required to improve the quality of public health infrastructure, and more human resources in terms of doctors, specialists, nurses, health administrators and technicians are in need of an hour, especially after the experience of the 2 years of pandemic. Only 80% of sanctioned doctors' posts are filled by primary health center. Only 36% of the sanctioned posts of specialist doctors are filled in the community health centers. So this is the kind of major challenge that we are facing in terms of improving the public health infrastructure. NFHS 5, which was conducted during 2019 and 2021, found increased malnutrition among children as many as 36%, that is more than 1/3 of India's children are stunted, and 19% are a low weight, they're below the normal weight for their height, and 32% have a low weight for their age. So this is the kind of a reality we are facing. Another, when it comes to the direct 100% allocation to women, like Women and Child Development's budget, we see that there is barely any improvement in the allocation. No substantial increase in the portfolio allocation related to umbrella schemes such as Mission Shakti, which has two aspects, Saksham and Sambal. And even the transgender community is very upset with the kind of allocation which is made except for Garima Grah, which are also poorly funded. Another very important distressing fact is the gender economists and organizations like Feminist Policy Collective had submitted a comprehensive recommendation after national level detailed deliberations with the gender economists, social scientists, women's studies research scholars and women's rights groups with the aim of transformative financing for women and girls. But none of them were, their suggestions find place in the union budget. So it is in this background, my first question is to Ms. Lata Bhise, that how do you view the union budget 23-24 from a gender lens? Budget promises to strengthen SHGs under National Livelihood Mission, and how will it help the poor women? Will SHGs be directly empowered, or the private microfinance institution will channelize the funds? You have been working at a grassroots level in demystifying the budget for over 2 decades. So I think you are the best person to answer how do you see the implications, gender implications of the budget. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you, Vibhuti, and all and organizers and all my colleagues in this panel discussion. The budget, the current budget, I think before some years, our Prime Minister said that women voters are the most silent part of our country. And this silent section of our country is again silent in the budget also. They are silent about women in the budget. Whatever slogans they have made, maybe in education, as you have told about livelihood mission, then self-help groups, those are just slogans on the paper. It will not help women at grassroots level. Particularly about SHGs, there is no market protection for SHGs, and there is no provision at all for market protection. Then more skills to SHGs who are working on livelihood. The same traditional livelihood programs are there, like masala and chakki, masala, papad, and other household things. There are no other any skills developed in grassroots level women. And so all these SHGs, whatever they get money, that is not useful even for capital, not for their skill development, and whatever they produce or whatever they make some कुछ बनाते हैं, उसके लिए भी मार्केट का प्रोटेक्शन नहीं दिया गया है. SHG प्रोटेक्शन जहाँ कहाँ दिया गया है उधर SHGs बहुत एम्पावर्ड हो गए हैं, जैसा है कि कुटुंबश्री प्रोग्राम इन केरला. Like that in other state there may be some small enterprises who are helping SHGs, but all over India SHG is now part of voting banks, vote banks for ruling parties, and whatever money they are given, it is not audited, or many times it is not seen whether what is exactly going on there. There is no infrastructural facilities provided to them. And so empowering SHGs, particularly about minority women, I can see that there is no separate provision for minority women. Then after Sachar Commission and even after Kundu Commission report, there was issues raised that no implementation of 15-point Prime Minister program regarding minorities. And one of the program in that developing SHGs for minority women. But it is not implemented, and there is no budget for minority women's SHGs and livelihood.
Yeah, I think the one controversy that we have, that instead of directly empowering SHGs, if you go via microfinance institutions are as mercenary with the poor women, no, because that is what we have experienced in all the public hearings and lok adalats and all, no, the way they are no different from the private money lenders. So this year's massive budgetary allocation for empowerment of SHG, main thing is the modalities, that are you going to directly empower SHGs, or will the microfinance institutions will mediate that? No, that is a very important challenge.
I think microfinance institutes will be empowered and not women. They will get more funds. More funds will be utilized on bureaucracy or staff of theirs, and money will not come to the women. Whatever we have seen in Maharashtra or other places, women are वो बहुत लोन उनके पास में हो गया है, लोन की पूर्तता भी वो नहीं कर सकते हैं, और प्राइवेट माइक्रो फाइनेंस इंस्टीट्यूट्स एंड गवर्नमेंट बैंक्स भी माइक्रो फाइनेंस कुछ देते हैं. तो उसमें ये महिलाएं नहीं एम्पावर्ड हो जाएगी जब तक उनको मार्केट की सुरक्षितता नहीं दी जाएगी, और गांव में उनके लिए स्किल डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम ज्यादा से ज्यादा एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड हो या बाकी कुछ जैसे वैल्यू एडिशन है वो हो, तो ये सब एसएचजीज एम्पावर हो सकते हैं. लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि बजट में बहुत सारा पैसा दिया हो, लेकिन वो कहाँ जाने वाला है, किसके पास जाने वाला है, ये तो कुछ पता नहीं चलता है. इसमें कुछ स्टैटिस्टिक्स भी नहीं है इनके पास में कि पहले कितने ग्रुप्स है. एक जो पेपर पर जो रहता है वो दिया हुआ है, लेकिन पेपर में जो स्टैटिस्टिक्स है उनका वो, और एक्चुअली एक्टिव एसएचजीज कितने हैं, एसएचजीज कैसे बनाए हैं, किन लोगों के बनाए हैं. एससी और अपर कास्ट की औरतें इकट्ठा हो तो उधर एससी महिलाओं को फायदा नहीं होता है, तो ये भी एक ऑडिट करना बहुत जरूरी है. तो ये सिर्फ सिर्फ इलेक्शन के लिए ये एक स्लोगन है, और बहुत एसएचजीज वोट बैंक की तरह यूज होते हैं. तो इसमें मुझे एक वोट बैंक बनाने का धोखा भी लगता है, और उसके लिए ये पैसा आ रहा है. ये अनुभव हमारा है, और ये बजट में इसके लिए एसएचजीज पावरफुल करने की भाषा की गई है, क्योंकि 24 की इलेक्शन आगे है.
ठीक है लता जी, मैं आपके पास फिर से आऊंगी सेकंड राउंड में, लेकिन आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क डॉक्टर परमिता मजूमदार that you are working closely with the ministry for so many years. You have been consultant to ministry and now as a lead GRB expert of UN Women in India. Can you share your reflections on the current budget, and what is UN Women doing for implementation of gender budgeting at a national and subnational and PRI levels? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vibhuti and IMPRI for giving me this opportunity to share. It's definitely important for all of us. In terms of the reflections of the budget, I completely agree with Lataji what she has said. And definitely the money is not going to go to the SHGs directly. That's my feeling too. That it will be routed through the microfinance institutions or the banks, and because in terms of whether providing the raw materials or the designing, the branding, the marketing, whatever has been a kind of standardization the MFIs will do, maybe will guide the process. As far as at the ministry level, of course we have seen others and other sectors, nursing colleges coming up, and these will be attached with the already existing medical colleges. So the World Health Organization, the standard is basically 1.7 nurses per 1,000 population is what India is having now, and so we are the World Health WHO norm is to have 3 nurses per 1,000 population, but we really don't know whether that's really going to help the workload or the long working hours or the double shifts that women nurses already are playing at this moment. How far it will be implemented. Again, in terms of the this particular program which has been mentioned, the Prime Minister's Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman. Now in this also, it's like really difficult to assess because the youth, the women in this, again, it says that it will be linked with the MSMEs, and MSMEs will be benefited, women will be benefited, but the micro, small and medium enterprises, there's like only 20% of the women are entrepreneurs, and even if you get the Mahila Samman, whatever certificate, or it's very important that women get loans, whether it's in terms of agriculture, whether it's for the MSMEs, getting loans easily from the bank, because access to credit has remained the problem forever, and I don't think the budget has really indicated anything in terms of easing that out. So that's really critical, and lot of discussion is happening everywhere about this the 33% increase in the capital outlay, but as we all know, of course the construction sector, apart from the housing in the urban and the rural areas, will get a boost, but in terms of local job creation for women, if empowering women or women-led development, what the government is saying is the agenda, then also it's really tough because the focus is basically on the road transport ministry, the defense, and the railways. So basically these 3 ministries are getting roughly around 60 to 70% of the expenditure of this capital outlay. So whatever will be rolled out, how it's going to be streamlined, what will be the tendering and the hiring processes, how the documents will actually be engendered, it's a long way. So I really don't see that in the next 1 year, if at all, certain things or the construction work actually starts in these sectors, how much of women will benefit out of it. But nevertheless, there is an opportunity, and lot remains to be done, not only for us, for every sector, whether it's the private public partnership that we talk about or with the government, how to go about it, how do we actually begin with those standard documents to work with the government. So that's very critical at our end. Government has also spoken about the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, but the focus has shifted. We see a lot of focus on coding, then artificial intelligence, and all the soft skills, drones, etc. But as the NFHS survey data says, 2019-21, that there is a huge gap between women's internet use. The first time internet users 33% versus 57% men. Rural India definitely has that divide. So, with this particular program that is being introduced, not very sure that, how are we going to bridge the gender gap in the digital world, as well as how the women will, young women will benefit out of this Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. There are, number of issues. We know that, even a mobile phone operating, women to operate the mobile phone, they need permission from their, whether it's the parents or the elders in the family, the hours, even college girls have those practical difficulties. So, to access computers and then use internet and all those training programs, really skeptical about that. In terms of the continuous effort that we have been doing at UN Women, with that work that we do, and with the ministries also, with Women and Child Development, which is the nodal ministry for gender budgeting, continuous efforts to institutionalize the gender integration is there. So with that, we see, it's absolutely nil, nothing, but still we see the Commerce Ministry, the Home Affairs, the Tourism, the Petroleum and Natural Gas. It's absolutely like meager allocation, but we see for the first time these ministries some kind of conviction there to reflect it, their schemes and programs in the gender budget statement. So we do have Department of Commerce first time reflecting their training and development program of the rubber board, because we do know that this shortage of workers there, and for tapping of rubber, and the Commerce Department has been trying through the Kudumbashree groups, basically getting women on board to do this work, and they are imparting training. So that's a process now, and they need more women. So this is there. LPG connection to poor poor households. Then, of course, Tourism Ministry reporting some amount safe tourist destinations for women. And of course, the Home Affairs reflecting, we know that the census this time will be digital, and there is a lot of implication for gender statistics. So when we engage with the census of India, so there's a potential that women related data and statistics to be reflected. So this has also been reflected in the gender budget statement. We know about the Awas Yojana, and Professor Vibhuti Patel has already mentioned that this has been reflected in the gender budget statement. But one thing is that the entire amount of both urban and rural Awas Yojana has been reflected in the gender budget statement. So whether it is in the name of women, or whether it is a joint property, so that somewhere at least it acknowledges that not only the livelihoods, maybe some control over assets that has been over a period of time, that kind of advocacy somewhere.
The long-standing demand of women's movement of a special focus on women-headed household in a housing scheme, no?
Absolutely.
Women, widows, separated, single, and divorced women. They should be given a space. That is not there, because that has been a long-standing demand.
Absolutely. So but also to put the entire chunk of money in, without having that kind of segregation. It's just that saying, because the stamp duties, as we all know, this 2% there, we don't even know that what is being translated actually on ground. But then you see there is a jump in the gender budget statement that is there because of these two schemes. You did mention, Professor Vibhuti, about that, education and health, there has been marginal increase, but I'm sure you must have also noticed that this particular scheme, the national scheme for incentive to girl child, for secondary education, which was the only scheme which was reflected in the gender budget statement by this Department of School Education. It has no allocation, it's nil. So it was 3,000 rupees, which was given as an incentive amount to the girls. It's not reflected. I'm not very sure whether it's being redesigned or whether it's in part of any umbrella scheme. Absolutely nothing there. So in terms of adolescents, though the government has said they are going to set up these national digital libraries for children and adolescent girls, but to do away with a particular scheme which has been doing good is like really tough. You have already spoken about the Women and Child Development Ministry, and absolutely, we of course know that Nirbhayapan, Dr. Kirti is there. She will definitely be speaking. The one important thing about the NREGS program, of course, I mean, one can talk about demand and supply, but this is basically, the reduction has been definitely to the tune of 30%. We have seen that with the amount that has been allocated. It's very difficult, the NREGS dashboard, which is there, it shows that currently there is some 15 crore active workers. Now, if the 15 crore active workers, we know that the wage rates are different in different states. So it varies between some, 200, 203, 410 in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh to Karnataka, Andhra, some 100, 330, roughly around 300. So even if it is like 220 or 10 per person per day, and the pending wages that one has to pay to the women or the workers that have already worked, so it's not even 50 days in a year that the NREGS is going to cater. Of course, the government might say that, during the revised estimates, they will provide, but this definitely is an issue there. But yes, there's a long way. We also know, as you have also mentioned, that in terms of social sector expenditure, the economic survey, of course, has pointed out there is some 26% in the social sector spending is there, and there's stagnation. But the researchers and the for example, Accountability Initiative, which is also a budget group and analyzing budget for years, their analysis since 2009-10 till 2023-24, like this budget, they have seen that it was 20% kind of stagnation there, but the social sector spending has gone down, and this year it has been reduced to some 18%. So there is a whole lot of issues. We are not really a forward-looking budget in terms of gender. But as far as UN Women is concerned, we work with the ministries. We have recently, prior to the budget, we have done gender analysis of schemes and programs, reached out to some 25 ministries just before the budget in a month's time. And then there are state governments where UN Women works very closely with. But again, it is basically everything boils down to just reporting and whether it's format and stuff, but in terms of actually engendering the planning process, actually the web of institutionalization that we have, which not only includes the policy sphere, there is an organizational sphere, then there is the citizens there at the grassroots level, the delivery, it's really not happened. Panchayat ministry works differently to do with the panchayats in their own. The schemes and programs are implemented, but aligning them and looking at the panchayat, like for example, you mentioned about the water and sanitation program and the Jal Shakti, this program you have said, and also important because of the COVID. Now in this, if you have seen, the 15th Finance Commission grant was given. It was a one-time grant which is spread for 5 years. But if you look at the water users committee at the village level and engagement of women, their decision making, there is a whole lot of things. So in terms of real institutionalization that we talk about, when we talk in terms of gender, our work has to continue. So now this year, the challenges, apart from the social sector, we really have to try and engage with those departments where chunk of the capital expenditure is going to
them. Very important.
Thank you.
Yeah, sensitizing them becomes very important mandate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Paramita, for such a comprehensive scenario and profiling of the budgetary allocation and critical reflection that you provided. Now I would like to ask Professor Manisha Karne, that what will be the significant gender implication in terms of social infrastructure, because you are an infrastructural economist, in terms of both physical infrastructure, will it have a gender implication to some extent? Dr. Paramita told us about it. And I would like to make a special focus. I request you to focus on the intersectional vulnerabilities based on caste, ethnicity, religion and gender. How the scheduled caste plan, tribal sub-plan, plan for the weaker sections will be affected in terms of implementation of the budget.
Thank you first of all for giving me opportunity to present my views. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. And thank you, Vibhuti ma'am, for inviting me, and also thanks to the fellow panelists. It's great to be in your company. Answering your question, actually, Dr. Paramita has made my job easier because she has taken a comprehensive view of what will be the gender implications of this particular budget. I totally agree with her point, which she has made about the government's capex, which has increased by 37%. But it is being dominated by higher allocation for roads, railways, and interest-free loans to for the states. Now it depends on the efficacy of the enhanced allocation, how they are going to spend it and how quickly and effectively these funds will be spent. But looking at the last year's record of the government, the target was not achieved. So I have my doubts whether this year also the target of the capex can be achieved. That's one problem. I may talk about it later on, but I agree with her point that here, the focus has been on roads, railway, and physical infrastructure. So, how much of engendering of these spending will happen is the question. Okay, so that is one thing. Regarding other social infrastructure, I would like to make few points, which could be a repetition of what you said in your initial remarks. But let me give my viewpoint also. Social sector expenditure or the social infrastructure investments are very important and they have impact on the lives of the people. Now, these include expenditure on health, education, several welfare schemes like PM Garib Kalyan, Anna Yojana, then PM Poshan, which was earlier I think called as midday meal scheme, maternity entitlement scheme, national social assistance programs, and so on. So if you look at the components of these social sector expenditure, like if you look at the education, allocation to education as a percentage of GDP, it has actually remained more or less same. However, you can see that the allocation for National Education Mission has been reduced in this budget. School education has remained stagnant, and the NEP talks about 6% of the GDP to be allocated for education, and that remains a distant dream. Similar picture is seen in health, where the health spending has remained always dismal, around 1% of the GDP. Thanks to COVID, it had gone up to 1.4 in 2020-21, then 1.6. Then 2020, 22-23, it was 2.2, and 23-24, it was 2.1, again a decline. So if you see the budget allocation, there has to be there seems to be a marginal rise, but if you take it in real terms, looking at the inflation, then actually you can find that there is a decline. And this decline, I believe, will adversely affect the welfare of the large number of people who depend on the public health facilities. To add to that, National Health Mission allocation is reduced in this budget. That is also a concern. And there is no mention which is made of public health and public management cadre, which is going to have adverse impact on the health seeking or access to health facilities for the poor people. In fact, with this budget, we can see that India continues to be mostly private health sector dominated country, where out-of-pocket expenditure is very high, causing indebtedness and hardships to the people in the event of sickness, especially where hospitalization is required. Similarly, if you look at the other welfare schemes, the allocation to welfare schemes like PM Kisan or education, social welfare, urban development, all the umbrella schemes for SC, STs and minorities and other vulnerable groups are also reduced. In fact, inclusive development was considered to be one of the priorities in the budget speech, and it was referred to as Vanchito ko Variyata, but I don't see those priorities. In fact, everybody feels, I mean, people like us feel that there is a emphasis on growth, green growth, sustainable growth, and more importance is given to infrastructure investment and so on. But somewhere the welfare schemes have taken the hit. That is my feeling over here. Another point which is important for the vulnerable sections, as you talked about the impact of it on SC, STs and other minorities, MG Narega's role is very, very important. Unfortunately, the allocations have gone down from 89,400 crores in the revised budget of 22-23 to 60,000 crores in 23-24. Now, if you look at the, Dr. Paramita has already talked about this particular scheme, but what is promised is 100 days of work, but actually on an average only 42 days of work is being given. So there is unmet demand for this work, and with reduced allocation, already there are delay in wage payment which are pending, and this will further affect the chances or opportunities of getting jobs for women vis-a-vis men in the taking the pre-existing biases in the social structure that we have. So here also, I think women will be adversely affected due to the decline in the allocations which are made. If you look at the overall employment scenario, it is observed by the Global Wage Report that was released by UN's Labour Arm, International Labour Organization, in November 22. The nominal wage rate in India for men has increased by 4.7 and women has increased only by 3.7%. But when you take this in real term, actually there is a decline in the real wages for men as well as women. So this is basically due to high level of inflation. So the purchasing power of lower income groups is badly hit during last few years, and this class I don't think has been given any relief in the budget. So that's a very important implication for them. And according to the same report, 70% of the male and female workers have been worsened beyond tolerable levels because of the fall in the real wages. And women have been further affected due to inequity in wages. So are these concerns addressed by the budget? I'm doubtful about it. And she also, there was a talk about this Mahila Samman Patra, which gives benefit to women who can set aside 2 lakhs in the bank accounts. This is a new initiative, but my question is how many such women we have in India, where you have 80% of the people earning less than say 20,000 a month. Where do you have people, especially women, who can have the economic independence and also the financial independence to take such decisions to keep this money aside in the bank account? So the related thing which I want to add over here is the labor force participation rate for females has been declining, and 42% of this decline is due to not finding any suitable job and other factors. So we certainly needed measures to create more jobs, either wage employment or self-employment opportunities for such women to suit their needs, and giving them access to participate in the economic activities. Such focus, I feel, is missing in the budget. That's and a different point which I want to make is about the PVTGs. It's a welcome move that you have 15,000 crore which are set aside for next 3 years for particularly vulnerable tribes in the country. There are more than 75 such tribes, and you need actually to focus on various issues like the issues of livelihood and employment, education, health, involuntary displacement and migration and social exclusion. But whether 15,000 crore for 3 years will be adequate, I'm really doubtful. We have worked on a project at Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policies for PVTG policy making. There are 3 such tribes in Maharashtra: Katkari, Vadiyagon and Kolam, and we have seen how precarious or vulnerable these tribes are. So much more is needed. That's my feeling. I think I'll stop here and maybe
I think
back
it's very
later on.
good that
Thanks
all
a
of
lot.
us are complementing each other. by enhancing the deeper understanding of the implications of gender implications of the union budget. Now, Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar, I would like to ask you that what is your response to the current budget with respect to gender concerns of the areas which previous two speakers have not touched upon, basically the agrarian sector, and you have been traveling extensively, working at a subnational level also with several governments. So can you share your responses?
Yeah, so thank you very much. And before I begin, I would like to thank IMPRI particularly, because the IMPRI team has been consistently working on this. And it's like, I think I was part of the panel last year also. And this conversation is a very beautiful engagement, because not only does it give us a center stage to voice our views, but also to bring in the gender discussion to the mainstream. So thank you, IMPRI, for these kind of engagements on a regular basis. And one more thing, that the panel is all women, so that itself is very, very encouraging, and I feel very happy to be part of that.
Because all these days we have seen only manels. We haven't seen single.
So that's why it was very
all men
interesting.
are speaking on budget. Yeah,
exactly, interesting, because when you sent me the names, I was like, oh, that's very interesting. All women, so that will be very
and also geographical
nice.
Diversity. We have all parts of India. We try to get in the northeast. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Right.
So, Vibhuti ji, thank you for this question. But as I understand, Paramita has covered most of the conversation that I was going to talk about. But I will just bring in few more, because we work in similar lines. So obviously our discussions are more or less the similar in nature. But today, as I shared with you, I'd like to share my personal views. It's not my I'm not representing the office here. I'm just sharing my own personal views. So to me, the union budget is a mixed bag, because being somebody who's working in the gender budgeting space, which is very, 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 very technical and very, very insular kind of a conversation, because most of the time the different stakeholders are having a dilemma as to what exactly is their role. So in that kind of a scenario, if I see that the total in the total union budget, the gender budget has seen an increase. Like last year it was 4.3, this year it is 5%. So for me, small successes give me a lot of joy. So maybe this journey has to continue for more years to come. But yes, there is a increase in the number, and that itself is very encouraging. As Paramita has rightly pointed out, there are new ministries also who have reported, though very nominal amount, but the recognition that they have to work on it is the first step. So that is something I find it very encouraging. So when I look at the total allocation for women and girls also, that is also a little bit, but there is a raise in that number also, from 1.71 to 2.23 lakh crore in this cycle. So that also is something that I believe is encouraging. And this campaign that we feminists are working on has to continue, because it really is this momentum that is giving the other people in the other side of the table a recognition that, okay, we have to look in those areas also. So now when I look at the union budgets, what exactly are their visions, and I look at the vision of Ambedkar that they talk about, they have these 7 pillars. And these 7 pillars are something, it is not like if from a gender budgeting sphere, if I see directly which department is it catering to, there are multiple departments. There's a lot of convergence in those conversations. So be it inclusive development, be it infrastructure and investment, be it in unleashing the potential, these are very subjective discussions. And they have actually identified what exactly are they denoting by that. So that itself, that engagement that they are putting efforts in, for me as a feminist, I think that, okay, this is one step ahead. So let us keep going around that. As Manisha ji pointed out, green growth is also one of those pillars. Then you have the youth power, you have the financial sector. and finally the reaching the last mile. So there are some very critics might say that these are rhetorics they are using, but for me, I believe that if those rhetorics can be pinpointed and we can see how we can influence the policymakers to actually work around the gender lens and find resources in it. So for us, that will be a small win. So that is there. At the risk of again repeating myself from the last year, I feel that the SDG aspirations of this policy trinity that we talk about of efficiency, equity, or sustainability is still finding promising advances. Very small advances, but still there are advances. So I actually stand, I don't actually want to critique the overall thing. I want to see the positive, because somewhere or the other, I feel that negatives or the critiques are something that we have to work. The feminists have to work on. But if we are able to identify that there are some positives, be it the engendering the digital economy, understood what we raised, that most of the women don't have access to it. Most of the women do not have understanding about it. But the acknowledgement that it has to be engendered, it itself is a win for me, because the conversation was not getting into the on the table. So that has come to the table is something that I find very interesting, and that motivates me. And focusing on the remote northeastern regions, that itself is a huge win, because Northeast India has been having a lot of disadvantages, because the central government was not very proactive on looking at their concerns. So that continues in this cycle also. So that is something I find very interesting. And the other schemes have already been raised. In the nursing colleges thing that has been raised, 157 nursing colleges will be set up. Paramita has touched on it. If we are saying that India stands at 1.7, this is a study that was shared by Hindu, and the data is from World Health Organization, that 1.7 nurses per 1,000 population is needed, as opposed to is there in India, as opposed to 3 per 1,000 needed. 3 per 1,000 is also a huge challenge in our numeric understanding, quantitative understanding. So if we are able to even get some momentum on it, that 157 new nursing colleges are set up, and that definitely will boost that space, or that answer that space. So that I want to see it as a positive thing towards women-led development. But as I think this was touched by you, I find the slashing of the fund for the minority ministry very challenging. That is very problematic for me, because if I am looking at it through a gender lens, a huge number of women are there, and scholarship ho ya fellowship, so ये सारी चीजें उनको reach करना बहुत जरूरी था. And if that has been curtailed, it is very problematic. That one side I am talking about inclusive development and all those things, all those 7 pillars, but in the other side, a major population's growth has been restricted. So that is something I worry about. And when I look at, because gender budgeting per se is one of the tools through which we are building this momentum around this conversation, I still feel that as professional working in this area, among the different stakeholders, understanding on how gender budgeting has to be utilized or benefited for the women, the last in the margin, is still not clear in the stakeholders. मतलब अगर मैं कह रही हूँ कि I am thinking of pre-budget consultation as a tool, that has to be submitted to the ministries way in advance. It cannot be right when the budget is going to be placed. because the recommendations will be picked from there. So if I look at the understanding of the stakeholders, and in the second cycle, I see CSOs as a major party in the conversation. CSOs have to understand that when do they get into that conversation and how do they align their conversation around those deliveries or around those goals that we personally are trying to reach. So having an understanding on how to utilize this tool for our benefit is also something very, very critical. And I think last time when Raviji was also there, I had a conversation on that if we, as CSOs, one of our major tools that can influence our talk is the pre-budget consultation. But how serious are we to utilize it? How structured are we to utilize it? Then there is this conversation around lack of sex disaggregated data gap. So what exactly are we doing around it? If I talk from what we are talking about with the different line departments, with the different states, we are trying to build a momentum where they understand that they have to work on gathering those data heads. Why? Because that will give them a structure on how to plan the gender budget, how to plan the gender plans for their respective departments. But for that also, as feminists, as experts in this area, we have to facilitate what kind of tools can they utilize and how simple, like we should not be complicating those tools, because as we know, the direct stakeholder is the officer who is doing an additional duty. Gender budgeting is not actually a main task of these officers. So how are we looking at building those tools which can help them, like which won't be too much cumbersome for them to gather those information? So these are few pointers that I think around, and I kind of introspect on. And also the language. Many a times we in our circle we say that beneficiary, non-beneficiary, ये वाला जो say है, ये नहीं होना चाहिए. मेरा ये मानना है कि अगर ये से भी मेरा काम निकल जाता है, मैं निकलवाऊंगी. And then I will, धीरे से in the second stage, I will say, okay, let's not look at it in that perspective, because we are operating in a justice approach. So if we are operating in a justice approach, we should be thinking about everybody as a title holder, as a rights holder. So those things can come at a later stage, but at this stage, if beneficiary बोल के ही हमको काम निकलवाना है, let us use that. With these few words, I think all other rest has already been discussed. So yeah.
Thank you, Sanghamitra ji, for bringing out so many operational and practical issues. But when you brought the subject of language, I think the way media has been reporting about all anti-poverty programs, as a soap or a revdi, or the below poverty line groups as a sponge on the economy is extremely obscene. It is extremely vulgar. And as a decent human being, respectful of Constitution of India, how can we use such language? What we are doing is affirmative action for the historical injustices which the marginalized groups have faced. So this total insensitive way of reporting in the mainstream media, I think we need to take a serious note of that and also see to it that such things don't happen. So
we actually need to campaign on that also.
Yeah.
Separately, definitely.
And I think there should be one media analysis of report of budget and what kind of prejudices you see against the poverty groups, against the working class, against the quote-unquote unskilled, whom you call unskilled people, about the farmers, about the minorities. I think that becomes a serious mission, because then you are creating a mindset which is totally majoritarian, middle class, upwardly mobile. They are the only ones who are part of the development. All others are thrown out. So that culture, I think, has to be. So language does play a very important role.
Definitely.
Thank you, Sanghamitra. Now, Dr. Kirti ji, I would like to ask about the gender-based violence against a most neglected issue in the budget discourses. There is hardly anything written about it except for Sambal and this thing, Mission Shakti. But within that, no one has gone into the details. So I would like to throw light on that. Yeah.
Good evening to all. When we talk of Mission Shakti, It's an umbrella scheme where under that number of other projects are there. But there is no allocation increase with regard to this Mission Shakti standard as previous years. But here, keeping in view my grassroots level experience, I want to tell you that in Mission Shakti, many programs which are being implemented through NGOs, there is a central government budget and state government allocation of the budget, like 60-40, where we are seeing very clearly in our state, Andhra Pradesh, that since last 2-3 years, because we are running a home for call it as Ujjwala and Swadhar now, they have merged it. So the funds where the state government has to give, it's not being matched. That's why we are not getting funding. So what we are talking of the last mile or last mile connectivity, are we able to achieve it with this kind of a strategy? Because many states, when we approached the union government also, they told that many of the states didn't put their share. That's why the budgets are not released. So I'm so much concerned, it is not how much the budget is, but at least the budgets given are being properly expended, utilized, and whether there is a political will to do it at the state level or the central level. That's a major concern as a CSO from my angle. And also the next thing, looking at the nutrition for the pregnant and lactating women, already through Anganwadis, we have nutrition program for the pregnant women and lactating mothers and the children also. Why do we have again a nutrition parks? Is it the same thing we are going to give it in with a new title?
Oh, sure.
Are we not mainstreaming this one with a nutrition education? Still at the communities, the women and the family members are having a lot of myths and misconception with regard to the food habits and food they take. So my sincere suggestion here is, if we are going to build the nutrition parks, yes, fine, but make it with an inclusive of nutrition education, standalone, not like giving distribution of the food, whether cooked or the ready to eat food, whatever it is. Here I am not talking about how much it goes to that woman, because some of the portion will go certainly to the family members, because the woman, she can't eat before giving to her children or to her husband. So these concerns are there.
And plus, they are also equally malnourished, no? If you see
So
adolescent boys are as malnourished as adolescent girls, no? If you see,
Yes.
most of the studies have shown. See Professor Neeraj Hatekar's study of Mumbai, the comparison of the slum children of Mumbai, their nutrition and that of a tribal children is more or less the same, no? The malnutrition and morbidity.
Yeah. And also with regard to the internet, there's a lot of digital things we talked from the ground level, making the women to use the digital up till the AI and all those things, even the research point of view also. Did we give education and the knowledge to our communities, especially at the ground level, with regard to the do's and don'ts? Still, the women are facing a lot of cyber abuse and cyber violence. Why they are, because if somebody asks OTP, they are sending it, because they don't have a knowledge. So prior to giving these things, we have to have a strategy where they should spell very clearly, the preparation of it should be robust. Otherwise, again, the woman will be facing a lot of cyber abuse and cyber violence.
And also cheating.
Still in India,
And cheating also.
still in India, we don't have the manpower at the police or at the judiciary with knowledge of cyber abuse to address at the judiciary level or at the investigation level. So, and even in the colleges also, we should have a preparation of training our youngsters, because youth empowerment is there where we want to give the employment. Give them simultaneously the education of do's and don'ts relating to AI, cloud, all those things are very, very essential. Otherwise, the youth will be using it or making it one point.
Yeah.
And with regard to self-help groups, the budgets are allocated. Yes, fine. Since last 20-25 years, I'm seeing the same turn. It's all like a political mandate of the election mandate of these are reflecting on the SHGs. Are we making the women at the SHGs to become the entrepreneurs? Are we making the women at the grassroots who are members of SHGs to initiate the startups? These things are very essential. We should make them at the next level. So since last 30-40 years, when we talk of these things, just not giving like a doles or the loan waivings by some of the governments. So that's why the women in the self-help groups, they just talk of only getting loan or getting money. And the second side of the coin, when we see it, November 25th through December 23rd, 2022, the President of India has taken lead to conduct the gender awareness among all SHGs in India without any budgets. Are we going to mainstream it in the SHGs? We don't have a mainstreaming. We just talk of economic empowerment. Unless and otherwise, we include social empowerment in the SHGs with regard to how to face the crisis. These things are very essential, even in the educational institutions, corporates, where working, the woman has to be socially empowered. And when it comes to the youth also, I'm so concerned that there should be 50% of the female youth to be part of the employment and skilling and all these things. Yeah. Otherwise, the woman will take a back step due to marriage, due to home care and all this. So that's why clear-cut gender disaggregated data planning to be done in the budget.
Yeah, I think the way we did the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, that minimum 30% girls should be there. Similarly, I think for Stand Up India, Startup India, Make in India, Entrepreneurship Program,
everything
quota has to be there. Otherwise, neither banks nor the bureaucrats are going to allow women to have a level playing field. No, currently only 8% women entrepreneurs are there. Their capacity to invest is 50,000 to 2 lakhs. Most of them raise their funds by selling their gold or borrowing money from family members or husband or neighbors. No? So that scenario has to go. Yeah.
And one more thing, my major concern is the fixed deposit of the 2 lakhs. Are we making our SHG women to make their loans to do fixed deposits? That's what my major concern is. They are going to save it like that. And last but not the least, the major concern at the ground level for all the families is safety and security and protection of the women and children. There is no mention of it at all, although there is increasing violence on the women and children. It is not National Commission for Women, it's not NCPCR like that. But to what extent we are gearing up with a XYZ budgets to provide safety and security of the women, and at the same moment, how much the Nirbhaya fund is being utilized? It's underutilized. Why we are underutilizing? What to do? These things are a major concern.
In Maharashtra, they used it to buy SUV, the four-wheelers for the MLAs, no? Yeah, fund.
And last but not the least, the research has given focus on pharmacy. Yes, important. because we have seen since last couple of years how the pharmacy can make a change for the health, but the research on gender should be a priority, where 50% of the population still not being unequal to reach the SDGs by 2030. And this year, India is a host country for G20.
G20.
So how proud we are to tell that ours is a women-led budget, women-centric budget. We should be proud that we should tell that it's a women-led budget. It is not the woman to lead it as a chairperson for G20, but people like us, we all should feel, and even the last mile collectivity of the women also should feel that I'm a part of G20.
Yeah.
That we should make a pay way. So these are the things, and also implementation is very, very crucial, because the budgets are there, policies are there, making them effective, time-bound, quality-oriented deliverables
And
are a major concern.
Transparent also.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kirti. Now, Professor Manimekalai, you have been studying budget, and you are as an economics teacher, and also for past all your life you have been with the Women's Studies Center, and Women's Studies Center were the first to be given the responsibility of doing gender audit way back in the year 2000. So, and you have also done extensive research on women in informal sector, where 92% of female workforce is there. So what is your reading of the current budget, and what
Yeah, thank you very much. At the outset, I thank you for inviting, and Professor Vibhuti also for inviting me. And I've listened to all the other sharing and reflections on this budget. And as far as this informal sector is concerned, through my own research, I can say that the informal sector women, particularly in the context of the construction, the retail sector employees, or the domestic helpers, whatever, there has been issues of their basic needs. The infrastructure, when it comes to in the 7 priority areas, you have infrastructure and investment. And of course, the capital expenditure has also increased. Whether those expenditure, allocation would be focusing on improving the basic needs of these women in the informal sector and the social security too, because there's been a big issue, and you have so many boards where women can, or men in the informal sector can go and register, but many they do not. And you have to continuously engage in creating awareness, and the bodies which are working for them to enroll and avail the benefits, be it insurance or any other such social security benefits, is very much limited, which very well revealed in my own research. And when I also try to connect the kind of issues and raise possible questions connecting to the macro concerns, because this gender issues or the gender budgeting itself has to or intersects with various other variables. So the very question is why there is a reduction in gender budgeting, though of course there is a marginal increase, but there are, if you look into the part A, part B, there are negatives also. So this much is itself is a question: what is the priority, given that the gender equality, in terms of the gender equality report, World Economic Forum, that you are almost 146 of the rank in terms of health, and in other areas also it is not much encouraging. So you need to take into account what are the concerns in the gender gap report and focus. That is missing. And of course, it has already been very much emphasized, the decline in NREGA. Why? It has been catering to the needs of because informal sector workers include that also. And people are, particularly women above 60 years, are all engaged, and it is really capturing to the requirement. And why there is a decline, given that already you are facing with unemployment, inflation, food insecurity, etc. And the reduction in this is, of course, not explained proper. And also I try to connect how these reductions in terms of whether it is food subsidy to from 2.87 crore to 197, or allocation for schemes for minorities reduced by 38%. You don't have answer at all. Why so much decline for the minority, given that in minority the women's education is a big issue, and employment and participation in public life, etc. Very much challenging. In that context, there is a reduction, and in this minority schemes also, medical research and development also dropped by 6.8%. So talking about nurses, but nurse include the men also in the current context, and how it is going to be connected to this reduction in this medical research. And also coming to the agriculture, land available for cultivation is only 52.3% of the latest estimate, wherein you allocate the land use to only cereals to only 3.3%. So that is going to be taking care of the nutrition, and if it is not properly raised, it will also have implications. More so that women are still confined to agriculture. Apart from this NREGA, you still depend on those areas. And if this, I could see in my own research, even the recent visit to the agriculture field informed that very much mechanized. Even the small farmers, they collectively bring together the tractor, some 4 to 5 plots together, and they use the mechanized technologies only, and that threw away the women's employment at all. So that made them to migrate to the neighborhood cities, and mostly the two important areas they would identify is one, construction work, and other was domestic help. And this is what the pattern, and you have to have how to retain these women and men also to stay back there, providing facilities there in the rural areas, and also ensuring employment. NREGA may not be sufficient enough to cater. And among the BRIC nations, the lowest being allocated in India is 3.4% of, for health is 3.4%. Similarly, in the BRICS 2019, the people spending, it was also mentioned by some my fellow speakers, like the private spending or people spending on their own rose to 53.2%. That is very much revealing how privatized the health and how huge cost is being spent. So on the one hand, we are talking about poverty, unemployment, etc., and privatization of health. It is going to have a stake on their income, because the people, even though they are poor, they keep borrowing because they are not aware of the kind of expenditures the private sector, private hospitals are being. If they go and do all tests, then you are supposed to pay. Thanks to some state governments which have some programs, like even in Tamil Nadu, you have the insurance scheme for the lowest income group, and therefore they are captured at the very chronic diseases. But still, the other expenses won't be covered, and they sometimes go on borrowing, getting advances from the employers, and never indebted. And this microfinance institutions also, we were talking about these microfinance institutions, not only that they are replacing the old money lenders, and they coercive treatment very much push the women, self-help group women to the vulnerability, and they go borrow, repay the old loan, and again borrow, repay. This cycle continues, and sometimes it bring them to what you call the depression to the core, and trying to even push them to commit suicide. So these vulnerabilities must be taken care of, and when any allocation is done in the name of gender budgeting, to focus, and the priority should be the areas of gap that, like Kirti was also pointing about, and Paramita was also pointing out. So these important areas of concern must be taken care of. And poverty, always we say, has women's face, and it remains at 16.4% among G20 countries in any multi-dimensional ways you work on. And stunting among the children constitute the maximum here in India to 34.7%, and wasting also at 17.3%. So this indicates that there is a long way to go to strengthen the health sector. And in my own study, the informal sector, you were talking about many construction workers who are commuting for more than 100 kilometers per day to get the work, or suffering with the non-availability of sanitation facilities, the toilets with these needs, gender-specific needs, etc. And so therefore, there is an unequal allocation, distribution, each end up with the question of social injustice. That is what we are talking about. And this, be it the informal sector, where the formal sector, we are able to get, even the DAs are being announced as arrears for three to 4 terms, but these women, whether it is men or women in the informal sector, are not able to. And they are also, these women, they face the cycle of, because there is low income, and they have to cater to the needs of the women. And sometimes these informal sector women, why they are coming? Because there is no adequate income in the family, and the men into alcohol and other such things. And these women only forego their own nutrition and suffer with anemia, malnutrition, stunted growth. And given all this, that there is a disproportionate increase in the allocation in the budget also in Part A and Part B. And Part A, this is always a question, enormously, I mean, mostly capturing the PMOI, and the house is being shared by everyone. You can't just say this is 100% enjoyed by the women, and therefore that itself, there are a number of discussions going on, that is also. And about transgender also, I don't see many that there are coming up and exposing themselves, that there is a need to cater under whatever the mainstream policies are there, but still they are not being captured in the budget allocation. That they have to raise their voice, and all the other wherever we discuss, we have to bring their voices also to be heard. And similarly, the other Kirti was also pointing, who will be there to invest 2 lakhs for 7.5? They are already suffering, and even the SHG movement is caught up with this microfinance institutions, and they are not allowing to go beyond whatever transactions they have made. And I fully agree with Kirti that it is not to just focus on economic empowerment, but social empowerment. So it conceived in that context only SHGs, but unfortunately in my own study on the impact of microfinancing on women revealed that it is very much focusing on economic empowerment, and women just come and transact on the credit and they leave. And only in certain areas they are able to really discuss other areas. And the marketing is also one of the important issues that was revealed very much in the study. And that is the reason why there is a need to also take these products produced by the women SHGs to showcase, and thanks to Kudumbashri and other such initiatives in Kerala. So all these, so on the one hand, people in the informal sector in the wage employment, and the other the self-employment categories also. But self-employment categories in the micro or tiny or whatever the other enterprises, they are not being brought to the national income accounting, and that is one of the reasons why the economic participation of women is low. Though we say that it is, of course, there are other causes, but this itself, the methodology itself is a cause, and therefore we need to focus on that. So the question is like how to strengthen, because gender budgeting is only one exercise that the government is doing, and it cannot be done, everything cannot be done by, but still the allocation is very much important, and the questions of non-spending and underutilization must also be taken care of. Why when it comes to Nirbhaya fund, it is not being fully utilized itself is to be taken care of. And there are every now and then, you're talking about informal sector, lot of violence, whatever the gender-based violence form in which it is going unreported. And therefore, you need to allocate, and I mean, whatever is being allocated should be spent on creating awareness and also capacity building of the people, grassroots organization who are working on this, very much strengthening the informal sector needs, etc., to be allocated. But even when there was a proposal from the government of Tamil Nadu to our Women Studies Center to submit a proposal, but some 3-4 years back we submitted and there was no callback. So this is the kind of, and it raises the question, just because it happened to be related to gender budgeting or women, it is being not cared for. That itself is an important question. So you need to. And I also try to connect all the other reduction, because whether it is subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, or the reduction in input cost, or the agriculture accelerator fund announced, and the decline in Kisan Sammat Nidhi, etc., will have a direct impact on women, because in agriculture the women are already facing the problem of not being recognized as farmers. And what I'm trying to finally say is that the budget exercises should also focus on what it call, quote unquote, the agency of women, improving the agency of women, recognizing the agency of women, not again treating women as welfare beneficiaries. That has been my contention, because whatever allocation you do, you keep women as beneficiaries. That should be given up. And all these will imply whatever the kind of exercises made in the social sector and agriculture allocations will definitely imply on women in terms of food security, poverty, and livelihood challenges impacting further on nutrition, anemia, etc. And therefore, we have to connect all these and try to resolve through gender budget allocation. And I fully agree with other speakers also that gender budget exercise, the campaign should go, and we have to be happy that at least small developments is happening. But at the same time, it is not kind of begging and getting. It has to be on the rights perspective, quote unquote. So it is a right and entitlements, and we need not have to be always begging and happening. Requiring the gender budget needs to be strengthened. So with this,
Dr. Manimekalai, two new points you brought out, very important. One is about the women in agriculture and women farmers. So you say that their agency should be they promoted. But first of all, agency should be recognized because subsistence farm is looked after by women. And we have organizations like Mahila Kisan Adhikar Manch, and lot of research is done with the participatory action report. They have given comprehensive amendment. We had a very strong farmer struggle also, in which women played a leading role. So in that also, like the women are doing, they are farmers. They are not wives of farmers, or they are not only sisters of farmers or daughters of farmers or widows of farmers, but they are farmers. That acknowledgement also the state has to do. Without that, there won't be any, they will not be in the discourse, no, for any kind of agricultural development.
Be exploited. As just in the receiving end.
Yeah. Another thing is about that when it comes to transgender community, it talks about only Garima Group. So can you just share the Tamil Nadu experience? What kind of comprehensive developmental investment Tamil Nadu and Kerala have made? No? Yeah.
Yeah. In Tamil Nadu, there are some developments, and there is a recognition to provide every services available to others to transgender also. And some of them have qualified UPSC and became IAS, and also in police department. And there is a board, separate board catering to provide the kind of support system. And first of all, recognizing them equal. Even in the planning commission, you have a transgender representative presenting their needs, and whatever the kind of facilities available to others is also available here, and therefore they can, whether it is education or employment. Only problem is that recently we had a discussion with group of transgender persons in the 8 districts of Tamil Nadu in the RUSA project, and we learned that they need reservation. That is their demand. They need reservation in the employment, because in the UPSC and other services they write, they may not be able to totally compete with others. So some percent, at least 1% reservation is needed. There are also some of the cases pending. They have approached the court to avail that. Hopefully we will see that it may come, because there are other marginalized communities, and therefore the state is not committing immediately to the reservation. And other services also in the voting, whatever the other facilities available, they are being provided and they can contest. But still the issue is that how they have been, they've been accepted by the mainstream community. That itself is an issue. If recently we organized the Social Science Congress also, so we did have people representing transgender women in the gender symposium, and they said they could, they were able to participate, and the symposium could, quote unquote, I should say, heard them. So that is what they are expecting. So that mainstream community should recognize. That is
help for their shelter, education, skilling, employment, and also the emergencies they face, and also old age pension. Yeah, I understand. That is the Tamil Nadu model. And do you think that it can be replicated nationally?
Definitely, that is whatever the kind of, not only for trans persons, even for others also, several progressive models are there. The rupees 1,000 for higher education for girls from how government completed, the government school completed children, the girls, it is a kind of replacing the earlier gold for marriage scheme being replaced now with this 1,000 rupees for all the girls who completed 6th to 12th class in government schools who are joining higher education will be given 1,000 rupees. So the girls are happy. They need not have to depend on parents now. They can jolly well. And if the fee structure is also in the government colleges very, very low, highly subsidized. And therefore that several other schemes, you can, even free bus scheme is there. Women's mobility is promoted. women save the 100 rupees, because I also did one study for the Planning Commission to evaluate that free bus scheme. So now women, particularly working women, they can expand their wings to go beyond the limit, because earlier, because of the bus fare, they might not have gone far off. Now they are extending, and girls are coming to colleges, and the workers are going out, and therefore there are a number of pioneer and also very flagship kind of programs in Tamil Nadu, and they are also working towards ensuring social justice. And that perspective, I think this can be taken as a model.
Even for the sanitation workers, I think Tamil Nadu and Kerala have
free sanitary, and all the government schools being provided the incinerator, either concrete incinerator or the electric. And only issue is maintenance. So because additional funding is not being provided. So there are attempts to make several such flagship program being introduced to recognize the social need or gender needs of the women, and of course the other marginalized communities.
I think mechanized desludging has been promoted. It has been mentioned even in the current budget. But let us see nationally how do they implement it, because it's because of
once it was introduced here in Tamil Nadu, now it's all being implemented across the country.
Okay, so now I think Dr. Manimekalai, you have made this whole presentation. Each and every aspect of the budgets are touched by all our 6 panelists, and now it's a second round. It is about the way forward, but there is a one question in the chat box and in the question that by Madam Kolekar, Sheetal Kolekar. Would you like to speak or should I read it? Hello, Miss Sheetal Kolekar, would you unmute and speak? That what she writes is that without economic empowerment, the social empowerment is impossible. And in my experience, because only making them socially empowered, still they don't feel confident and even not participate in the household decision-making process. I think the economic empowerment makes women confident and they can participate in the decision-making process. I think that came out in several presentations. So I think now we can move to the last round, way forward. We start with Madam Srimati Lata Bhise. Lata ji, aap boliye. Now, Lata, please go ahead, Dr. Lata Bhise. You can please unmute and speak. Way forward, 2 minutes each for all of us. We have to finish by 8 o'clock.
The way forward is, I think that total gender audits of all ministries are necessary.
Very important.
Because there is no policies in many ministries, then whether there are gender audit committees are there or not, no separate data on women. That is not there. So the first urgent need is to develop such even policies for each ministry. Just I will give one example for gender-based violence. The issue is not related only with women and child department, but it is related with health department, education department, social justice department, law department. And so they all must have coordination regarding it, because many times High Court judges even said that there is a lack of a full number of judges in High Courts and even on district level. And many cases of women are pending all over India. It's not the case of Maharashtra, but total all over India. There are no fast track courts. There is no availability of public prosecutors. So there is a need for coordination even, and policies. A time-bound program must be set up. And so for gender-based and gender-friendly budget, we have to immediately demand, at least on this level, that such coordination among ministries. Then participation of women. It should not be when budget comes nearer in January or in December, but throughout the year there must be interaction of the government with women organizations, not only ruling party organizations. Then with women members of Panchayati Raj and local self-governments and all women organizations throughout the year. There must be interactions regarding budget. I think this is very much necessary, and this is the way forward. Last thing is that there must be awareness regarding gender budget. What we mean by gender budget? It's only on university level, or Vibhuti, we know that only like Vaikunth Mehta or some other organizations, but not on government level through the finance department and the persons involved in all processes of gender budget. So there must be awareness. This is the way forward, I think, and it will be
all your three suggestions
improve the gender budget and allocations and people's participation, because gender budget is not a bureaucratic process, but it is a participatory process, and that we must be aware of that, and government must be aware of that.
Extremely important suggestion about the bottom-up initiative and also the gender audit by each and every ministry and department. Now I would like Dr. Paramita Majumdar, what would you like to say about the way forward?
I think Lataji has already mentioned some of the critical issues. Just to add to, when we do, keeping the current budget in the context, I would like to again say, because the chunk of the expenditure is going to capital, heads, so the infrastructure sector. So for us, the priorities now definitely would be to look into the, this capital expenditure sectors and try and influence the ministries. Like, I'll give you a quick example. If you must have seen the Northern Railway of the this chapter, there was few months back, mother and child births were introduced in railway compartments. I'm sure you must have seen that. These are just small little initiatives, but really goes a long way. And how do you include women? It's not just benefiting women, but in terms of employment opportunities. So analyzing
I think the most important, Paramita ji, is the helpline by railways.
Yes,
the major center for trafficking is the railways.
Absolutely, and
women and children get influenced. They get kidnapped at the railway station.
Yeah, I mean, you have taken. I just wanted to flag when Dr. Kirti was speaking. No amount has been kept in the anti-human trafficking units this year. Not a single penny. So that's one thing. So analysis of the policies across these sectors, and of course the social sector that we are doing, which of course includes plus audit, because doing audit, maybe one can start with the local government level, local audit institutions with the Panchayati Raj resources. That would be easy, because getting CAG on board to do the audit as part of the performance audit will also take a little bit of time. It's not easy to get it done within one financial year, but gradually CAG is coming on board. Of course,
in fact, CAG is more than 65% are women in CAG office. Every year they organize lecture on gender audit of budget by me. But
in
Mumbai, I'm talking of Mumbai office.
Yeah, but here at the Government of India level, CAG did start with this action with the internal audit division of the Ministry of Finance. The work was done. So it's very important to have interdepartmental monitoring committee where finance is the chair, because we are definitely talking specifically about budget, whether it is at the state level or whether it is at the central level, and then each and every the other to talk with each other. It's very important to document the impact stories. The pluses, something that can be scaled up and replicated, not always about the problems that we see, but there is always half glass full. The other important thing in terms of budget, I must say, it's basically about regular monitoring, tracking, utilization of the resources, and of course the matching resources, which some of you have mentioned, getting the state's share. How does one ensure, what are the challenges faced by the state government, and then to bridge that gap, maybe the CSOs can fit in there and come and Also, I would say, brief notes, policy briefs or guidelines or one-pager kind of stuff for the parliamentarians and the legislators is really, really critical, because they really don't understand, and just 1 month of discussion and debate and just their constituency is absolutely not enough. That has been the experience. They talk very differently when you sit and discuss with them. We all know how data is important, like this 2 lakh expenditure that has been savings that one is talking about as part of the scheme. I mean, for example, if we have data, we know that in terms of just the withdrawal data, data on withdrawal, to see the control over the resources, for example. So we know that if the women have some degree of control over the new account, or whosoever, in whatever way, then there'll be some savings which will then help them, and they are not and less susceptible to the demands of their family members, and they can use it. So such kind of data, just as an example from the current budget. But yes, sex disaggregated data and analysis is the other important thing. I mean, always these are part of all our discussions and deliberations. So yeah, I stop there. Thank you so much, Dr. Vibhuti.
Thank you. I think you have also added a very important dimension of one is impact analysis and taking the pluses for the replication documentation, very important, gender disaggregated data. Now, Professor Manisha Karne, what would you like to say from the point of view of social infrastructure and also SCPC?
When the planning commission was there, and plans were made, we were part of doing midterm evaluation. I think the points which are made about gender audit and social audit is very, very important. And there should be a continuous efforts to evaluate the schemes and the allocations which are done for different groups, so that we can keep on putting pressure by way of monitoring and tracking, as already been said by Dr. Paramita. So I agree with both my earlier speakers that it is a participatory approach, but more than that, now we have to become a pressure group and continue to do these efforts in gender budgeting and gender auditing that we have been involved in. And thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Kirti, what would you like to say?
The way forward which we have to look at is it should be a bottom up. Should not be, how do we make the village level or the mandal level or the taluk level, district level, whether we call it assemblies or parliament, how do we make it women-centric assemblies and villages from village level to the nation level, so that the needs of the communities will be expressed and because India is a very vast country and we are looking at infrastructure development. Second thing is, when we talk of infrastructure development, 2 things which brings to my mind is, when we want make women to be the employees or to engage the women in it, we should also see that the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act is effectively implemented. And when we did for Amaravati Capital City Development, we did a policy for the World Bank, that is safety and risk mitigation policy for the women in workplaces, especially construction and all these things. So these measures has to be taken care with effective budgets and all those things.
Yeah. Because ICCs are never given budget, whether it is in university also, it should be treated as a voluntary work, and just women's group should be roped in to attend it. No, even the TA is not. So I think this should be part of the existing budget making exercise. How that safety and what you said is a risk mitigation policy.
Yes.
Just to just pick up the thread from what Dr. Kirti has said, bottom up planning. Now, one important thing is that it's basically requires an overhauling of the PFM system, which is really not going to happen until as there is reforms in the state budget or the government of India's budget. So we do have an FRBM Act under which the government actually works. So, and we do have this 15th Finance Commission grants. I mean, we know about it, how it goes to the the government and what they can do. At least in letter and spirit, if the 73rd and the 74th amendment is implemented, then Dr. Kirti, I think part of your question is answered. And what Dr. Sanghamitra had already mentioned, one important tool from the budget perspective that can include the women and their needs and priorities included in the budget is the pre-budget consultation. Have it in a cascading format, panchayats to blocks to districts and then to the state level, which feeds into so it must begin in August every year and not in December or November when half of the work is done. So with that process, maybe we can take a step forward. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah. This is, I think, very important that it should be in a cascading format so that all the practical gender needs and strategic gender needs can be collected and they should be included in the budget making process. Yeah, very important. Yes, Dr. Sanghamitra, what would you like to say in terms of way forward? Yeah.
I have already added it.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It
Now the last word, Dr. Manimekalai. Hello, are you there? Professor Manimekalai, please unmute and give your concluding remarks.
Yeah, this is, of course, I am concerned with the 7 priority areas where the budget is talking about the inclusive development, but unfortunately, as I already pointed out, the minorities, the budget has cut around 40%, and of course, we are talking about informalization, informal sector labor. Particularly the women and their basic needs. So the inclusive development in the 6 sense of the term should be towards including the needs, wherein you have already been increasing the capital expenditure. And as an economic student, I would say the returns from such increased capital expenditure should be distributed towards this need, particularly to improve the welfare and human development priorities. And the second is that the green growth, there we are talking about the G20 presidency, which is happening and which has been happening from December last year to November 23, where what is the participation of women, how many women are being invited participate in this or conduct. So that is also very important. So when green growth discussions are coming, women should be there who are already participating in change in the climate change initiatives, etc. And the third important thing is the youth power, wherein I'm very much concerned about skilling the youth. So considerable budget should be focusing on the skilling the youth because many educated are not employable. So the employability question is very much a concern, wherein the budget should also be focusing whatever the amount the youth power head is being allocated should be focusing on that. And of course there are attempts to reduce the fiscal deficit at the cost of the state, where the freedom of tax, including the GST, etc., or disinvestment, whatever it may be, where you're claiming that the fiscal deficit is being brought down. But unfortunately, the redistribution of the reduced fiscal deficit is not happening where it should actually to reach. So with these 3 important points, I would like to mention.
Thank you. Thank you all panelists for making such a robust, comprehensive, analytically rigorous and palatable, simplified version, demystifying the budget and analyzing it from the gender lens. The Union Budget 2023 has given significant relief to the middle class, and however, India's vast majority of the working people in rural, tribal and urban areas are facing intersectional marginalities, and also that emerged from your presentations. Even the share of rural development, water and sanitation, health, school education, all of them have either remained stagnant or reduced. In the post-COVID reality of a drastic reduction in the workforce participation, I think Narega becomes very crucial, but still the reduction has taken place in the budgetary allocation. Informal workers for their dignified life and social security are extremely important, and I think about that we will have to create, as Dr. Manisha Karne told us, that now we have to create a pressure group to bring the women's concerns center stage. The question of PACs, also the primary agricultural credit societies and the farmers cooperative, in that also the whole discourse revolves around women as a farmers and women as contributors to the subsistence agriculture, and also agricultural production has not come center stage. When it comes to PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, where the allocation is of 15,000 crore, and I think but still it leaves aside the semi-nomadic, nomadic, pastoral, deemed notified tribes who comprise 13% of the population, and they have historically faced ostracism or discrimination, stigmatization, and for them there is only allocation of 40 crores. So I think this and plus these are very mind-boggling issues that we have, and even among them the tribal women, even when we have seen in past also the TSP tribal sub-plan, how much goes to tribal women. There also we see the gender gap. Inhuman practices of manual scavenging, where they are talking about that from manhole to machine hole. So that is a welcome step, but at the same time overall condition of the self-employed of the manual of the sanitation workers, and especially not providing any allocation for self-employment scheme of rehabilitation of manual scavengers, of whom most of them are women. I think that is also a very detrimental step. When the budget talks about support to poor prisoners, but what about the under trials who happen to be, most of them are from the extremely discriminated communities, and they are the ones who are languishing in prison without any kind of justice system holding their hands. Under the green growth also, we are talking with there have been series of training programs Home Ministry has been organizing on gender and climate change, but here also I think we need to bring gender concerns center stage in the green growth allocations. So crucial issues of employment, health, education, price rise, they need urgent attention. And also macroeconomic policies for gender equality and gender responsive budget demands the focus on core themes such as decent work, acknowledgement of the care work, gender responsive public services, as you all reiterated again with several examples of different regions of our country, the social security and social protection. So I think with this, I would like to say thank you to all the panelists for giving such a rich input and very, very analytically insightful presentation backed with the robust data and the case studies and your personal experience. And all 6 of you have been working at a grassroots level. It is not only classroom teaching of macroeconomics or this, but you are really rooted in the reality, and that's why I'm extremely happy with this panel, because it has brought in what happens actually across the different parts of our country. Thank you. Over to IMPRI team, Naina. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As we have come to the end of today's discussion, I, Naina Agarwal, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC, for today's deliberation, a panel discussion on Gender and Union Budget 2023-24. We are grateful to our chair and moderator, Professor Vibhuti Patel, and of course to our panelists, Professor Manisha Karne, Professor N. Manimekalai, Dr. Sanghamitra Dhar, Dr. Kirti Buleni, Ms. Lata Bishe, Dr. Parmita Majumdar, for taking out time and enlightening us. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participate in today's discussion. You may also find more discussion in our IMPRI Web Policy Talk series, the State of Gender Equality, #Gender Gaps, and other thematic series. We are grateful if you are watching us later on our YouTube channel or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk. We also invite you to IMPRI's 3rd annual series of thematic deliberations and analysis of Union Budget, Financial Year 2023-24, being organized from February 2nd to 7th, 2023. Wishing you a very good evening and thank you.